Jack and the Beanstalk. In Orpington, Bromley, where the drizzle is dismal, Jack's financial circumstance was truly abysmal. With his mother Michelle, they lived on borrowed time, in a world where poverty felt like a crime. The sky was a sour gray, weeping in grief, a wane, fading hope with no sign of relief. To put it mildly, their house was inferior, with a severe lack of warmth in the chilly interior. Yet to find fortune, they'd long for a change. But the current world felt restrictive and strange. To make matters worse, as the day turned to night, their prospects were wane, and they lacked any light. Their lives were devoid of the joy they once knew, as the severe, heavy dampness continued to brew. Their garden was marred by a cow named Daisy, who was redundant, erratic, and slightly lazy. To maintain her was tedious, a lackluster chore. She was an eyesore, a burden, a physical bore. Prone to a stench that was far from a scent, she was a fish out of water wherever she went. Day in, day out, she would bicker and slack, while Michelle and Jack felt the hunger attack. The cow was dispensable, a source of dispute, a dismal expense they could no longer refute. They would quarrel and squabble and bicker all day, while Daisy just stood in a lackluster way. Michelle was infuriated, incensed, and irate. The dire need for money exacerbated their fate. "It's out of the question to keep her," she cried, while the atrocious rain pattered loudly outside. "We must eliminate costs and ditch this old cow. Go sell her for cash, and I mean start right now." Her voice was a thunderclap, loud and intense. To keep such a creature made no bloody sense. "Don't do away with her," Jack tried to protest. But his mother was certain this plan was the best. The final straw came when the milk ran quite dry, leaving Michelle with a tear in her eye. Michelle sighed and reached for a small hidden pot. "This inheritance, Jack, is the last thing we've got. 5 pieces of gold, our final resort. Though the sum is inadequate, dismal, and short." She handed them over, her face full of dread. Buy a business or seeds to keep us all fed. She had to deduct from their very last hoard, a dilemma that left them both feeling quite bored. "Don't be premature or postpone your task. Just bring back a profit. It's all that I ask." She barred him from leaving sans gold in his hand, the most precious treasure in all of the land. Jack walked to the station feeling quite small when a notorious Welshman approached by a wall. Fred was his name, loquacious and bold, with a slightly superior manner, or so Jack was told. "Inquiry," Fred chirped with a Welsh bouncy lilt, masking a motive that was sodden with guilt. He was enthusiastic, prior to their chat, adjusting the brim of his trendy wool hat. "I have an itinerary, a plan that's exclusive, though the benefits might seem a bit too elusive." He didn't hesitate, insistently bright, while Jack felt a reluctant, initial stage fright. He complimented Jack on his style and his grace, with an enthusiastic grin on his whiskered old face. "These beans," Fred proposed, "are consistent and rare. They'll convince any buyer and banish despair. I'll trade them for gold, it's a qualified deal. Are you for real? This is magic you'll feel." Jack felt it was ironic, perhaps a mistake, but he didn't reconsider the choice he would make. He gave Fred the gold, a forfeit of wealth, in an error of judgment and lack of self-stealth. Fred told him, "Hard luck to the coins you have lost, but magic is worth any burden or cost." "It's the thought that counts," Jack thought with a sigh, as the sun started fading away in the sky. But the trade was a backfire, a rotten deceit, as Fred skipped away down the Orpington street. When Jack returned home, Michelle was reduced to tears, recalling her deepest and infantile fears. "You juvenile fool! You've been conned by a crook. You followed the oldest bad trick in the book." She was crestfallen, distraught, and inconsolable. Her fury and anger were quite uncontrollable. No wonder we're failing. She gave him an earful, leaving poor Jack feeling lonely and fearful. She scold and she berate, she reprimand too, admonishing Jack for the thing he did do. In retaliation for his big mistake, she threw out the beans for the garden to take. She felt such regret, and she called him a name, as the sky turned to thunder and echoed her shame. "Stuff and nonsense," she yelled. "We are back to square one. Back to the drawing board. Look what you've done." She was appalled by his infantile choice, with a crack of despair in her motherly voice. "We're on the brink of the end," she declared. As if no one in Bromley or Orpington cared, Jack felt like a failure, a juvenile pest, as he went to his bedroom to seek out some rest. The beans hit the dirt with a soft, muffled thud, sinking deep down in the Orpington mud. Their future was marred. It was dismal and gray, as the light of the evening drifted away. Overnight, a horrendous green giant did rise, obliterating the fence as it reached for the skies. It was energetic and relentless, a twisting green vine that seemed to intervene with the stars' holy line. The growth was preceded by an omen of light, as it grew with a speed that was shocking and bright. It was akin to a tower, a gradual ascent, a consistent reminder of where the beans went. It didn't falter or cease, it escalated tall, preceding the morning with no sign of a fall. Organized chaos in the leaves' thick embrace, changing the standard of their living space. The sibilant leaves whispered secrets of old, as the beanstalk turned green from the Orpington mold. "I'll climb it," Jack cried, though Michelle did object, to a danger that no one could ever protect. "I prohibit this madness. I forbid you to go. The risks are too variable, as you must know." She tried to veto and request that he stay, but Jack wouldn't listen or move out the way. Under no circumstances, she started to shout, but Jack was insistent on finding things out. He didn't refrain, he wouldn't abstain. He didn't let Michelle's protests cause him any pain. He donned his old backpack and started his climb, to the rhythm of Orpington's morning bell chime. He wouldn't resign to a life of such lack, and he promised his mother he'd soon be right back. On the verge of the clouds, on the brink of a fall, he felt ecstatic, though he felt very small. The monotony of Bromley was far down below, as he watched the small cars and the buses all go. The air started to thin, and his initial fears were diminished by whoosh sounds that rang in his ears. He didn't falter or wreck his ascent, knowing exactly where his energy went. The climb was a marathon, a relentless task, with more than a simple young boy could ask. The height was a hyperbole, stretching so far, as if he could reach out and capture a star. At the top was a palace, spacious and distinguished, where the boredom of Orpington was quickly extinguished. It was the antithesis of his home in the street, with the scent of expensive perfumes, soft and sweet. Not only was it huge, but it also was pink, far from the substandard home, he did think. It was reminiscent of a high-tech resort where the giant, named Ellie, held her own court. Contrary to the stories of old-fashioned stone, it was glass and steel, an exclusive zone. Albeit a castle, it was modern and sleek, with a standard of luxury that made Jack feel weak. The giant named Ellie was snobbish and irate, a petulant woman who controlled every fate. She was egotistical, loquacious and loud, living high up on her exclusive pink cloud. She would shun any visitor, expel them with haste, treating the world as if it were waste. She was intolerant, hostile and superior, making everyone feel like they were inferior. "I've revoked all the permits. I've banned every guest. I'm the best in the book, and I'll pass every test," She had tetraphobia, hating the floor, and she barred any person from entering her door. She was notorious for being a snob who thought that the world was a hideous mob. Jack watched from a heap of giant-sized clothes as Ellie looked down at her giant-sized toes. She had gadgets that were automatic and rare, a cacophony of sound that filled up the air. "Demonstrate the new app," she would vocally cry, to a golden tablet that sat on her thigh. The tech was manual, and then it was not. It was the most qualified thing she had got. "It mimics my voice. It can imitate me. It's much better than Orpington, wouldn't you agree?" Jack couldn't overlook the wealth in the room, which would banish his mother's financial gloom. The noise was incessant, an excessive sound, as the tablet's music began to abound. "Engage the security. Disengage the lock," Ellie shouted at her giant-sized clock. The cacophony was inconsistent and loud, an ear-sore that echoed all over the cloud. Variable settings and incessant displays filled up the giant's loquacious old days. She would omit any silence and engage in a chat with her golden tablet and her giant-sized cat. Jack waited for Ellie to fall fast asleep, then out from the shadows he started to creep. He moved inadvertently, then with intent, knowing exactly where his courage went. He planned to sabotage her snobbish routine by taking the tablet, the best ever seen. He would evade the security, avoid every eye, under the cover of the pink palace sky. It was a peril, a jeopardy, a risk to his life, but it would end all his mother's financial strife. He caught it red-handed, or rather, it him, as he grabbed the gold edge of the tablet's slim rim. But the tablet let out a loud, shrill alarm, bringing the giant to cause him some harm. "Not so fast!" Ellie bellowed, her face turning livid. Her fury was obvious, her anger was vivid. "I'll confiscate you. I'll withdraw your breath. You've instigated a chase to the death." She was furious, irate, and she started to thwart every escape that poor Jack had sought. "A taste of your own medicine," Ellie then screamed. It was worse than any nightmare Jack ever had dreamed. To top it off, and to add insult to injury, she called for her guards with a vocalized gingery. "It's gone pear-shaped," Jack cried as he ran for the door. "It's gone down south," he yelled across the floor. The stakes were high, his life was in peril, as the giant's pursuit became wild and sterile. He reached the Beanstalk and started to slide. With nowhere in Orpington left he could hide. Ellie confronted him. "Give back my tech, or I'll turn your whole life into a wreck." She was relentless, she wouldn't vacate. She was adding more fuel to her fire of hate. The retaliation was certain and dire, as the situation grew even more higher. Jack reached the ground, and he called for an axe. "We need to cut down this Beanstalk's tracks." Michelle ran out with a tool in her hand to protect her dear son and their small patch of land. "Consequently," Jack said, "it's the end of the line," as he chopped at the base of the magic green vine. The fall was irrevocable, a premature end, as the beanstalk began to buckle and rend. Fortunately, it didn't vandalize the street, but the giant's demise was a thing quite complete. She didn't fall down, but her castle did fly away to a different part of the sky. With the golden tablet, their wealth was retained, and the light at the end of the tunnel was gained. They would revert to a life that was happy and bright, with an exemplary future and plenty of light. They collaborated to right every wrong, in the place where Michelle and Jack truly belong. The former was poor, but the latter was rich, without any erratic or troublesome hitch. "We're ecstatic," cried Jack, with a smile of elation. "The most competent pair in the whole of the nation." Vice versa, their luck had turned right around, with their feet and their fortunes both on the ground. After all, it was certain, as the recap would show, that magic beans are the best thing to grow,